Mike Phillips, Auto Forge Garage. Behind me is a 1967 Ferrari GTB/4 NART Spider. I always like it when the name of a car has a whole bunch of words I gotta remember. And if you don't know, the word NART stands for North American Racing Team. Now, these are very rare cars, and this car is down here obviously to be detailed. And I've already done the baggy test. It's extremely contaminated. So I'm gonna do a basic prep wash, waterless prep wash. Then I'm gonna clay it and then I'm gonna machine polish it. And when I'm done, I'll do a walk around video and show you the after results. Before we get started though, I'm gonna take the camera off the tripod. I'm gonna walk around and I'm gonna show you just the things that I look for and look at before I detail a car. And one of those things is the convertible top over here. The person that detailed this before me, they did not tape off where the top meets the paint, and you can see residual polish stains in the weave of the fabric. So what I always do is tape that area off, and that way it doesn't get stained. So I'll show you that and anything else that I find. So stay tuned, let me grab the camera. Okay, so the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do what I call a waterless prep wash. Before I get started though, I always teach everybody, you gotta keep everything clean. So I wanna set things onto this roll around tool tray, but before I do, I'm just cleaning it with the microfiber towel and some clay lube. A lot of times, you know, this type of work, it doesn't really matter what you use. You could use glass cleaner, just water on a towel, but I don't want any contaminants on this, kind of anything else I'm gonna do, so hold on. Okay, so this is a clay mitt, and I'm gonna use this. I like these because I can wash this and make sure it's clean before I rub on paint with it. A lot of times with clay, there could be contaminants in the clay that you can't see if you've already used it. Once you've used this, you can put this in a sink, take a brush, scrub it, some soap, wash it, rinse it, place it over a bottle like that, let it air dry, continue to use it over and over again. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna clay the paint with this. I'm gonna use the universal clay lube, but I'm gonna do a prep wash. This is actually a coating prep spray. So a lot of people use this to prep the paint for the ceramic coating. I like to use this as a waterless wash to do a prep wash because just like it'll remove polishing oils, it'll remove any kind of light traffic film or any kind of dirt or soil that's on this car to get it really clean, because cars like this I don't wash with normal car wash. So I like to use something with a little bit of a cut to it just to get it really clean. So hang tight, let me go grab some microfiber towels and I'm gonna show you how I do a prep waterless wash. Okay, so this is a stack of, these are actually the Rag Company 360 edgeless towels. I like these because they have a very low profile nap, and that makes them harder to get contaminated. Now, I've already taken and inspected these visually, and with my hands, I keep a pair of tweezers handy if I find anything at all. If I can't pluck it out, then I don't use the towel at all. But to do a prep wash is pretty simple. Basically, you use this like you would a waterless wash, only it's just a different chemical formula. And when I do a prep wash, I like to lay down an ample amount of product. Okay, so I have a lot of lubrication on the surface, and then just your basic wiping style. You don't have to get all fancy. I'm going to machine buff this, so anything that I do in the prep wash, like any accidental marring, kind of doesn't matter because I'm gonna machine buff it. The important thing is just to get any light dirt or dust off this car so I don't grind it into the paint when I start machine polishing. Or in this case, I'm gonna clay this car. I've already done the baggy test. It's pretty contaminated. Anyway, prep wash to get it clean. Next is gonna be the baggy test, and I'm gonna clay it. So I just got done doing a prep waterless wash using a prep spray for ceramic coating just to get it real clean. And as I'm working on the car, I'm putting all my dirty towels into my clean bucket. This is a clean bucket for dirty towels. And when I say dirty towels, I don't mean on the ground dirty. I mean, since I just wiped this paint down, this towel is used, it's dirty. It's not really dirty, but it's a dirty towel, goes in the bucket. You've got to have a protocol in place, no matter if you're an enthusiast or professional, to keep your towels from getting contaminated. Okay, so now that the car is completely wiped down, the next thing to do is the baggy test. And when you do this, you just want to use a clean sandwich baggie and then just lightly fill the surface. And what'll happen is this thin little membrane of plastic is going to increase your sensitivity, and you can feel things on the paint that you can't feel with just the skin on your hand. It's called the baggy test. And I would normally check all the horizontal surfaces, also the glass is contaminated, the paint's contaminated. What I thought was kind of interesting is up here, these plastic headlight shields, these are the most contaminated. This feels like 40 grit sandpaper. So after you get the car clean, whether you wash it or do a prep wash like I did, you want to do the baggy test, and you want to make sure that if the car has contamination, that you address that with the mechanical means. Now for this, I'm going to use a clay Mitt, okay, and I like these because of the flat surface. I can look at it and tell that it's not contaminated. This is a universal clay lube. And again, put down plenty of lube. This will decrease your chance of marring the paint. But the reason you want to do a mechanical means of getting the contamination off is because a lot of people think, and I can feel the contaminants when you slide your hand in here through that foam. You can actually feel them, and you can kind of tell when they're gone, so you can move on to new territory. But the reason you want to do it with mechanical means is because some people, they think that when they machine polish, they'll pull the contaminants off when they're buffing with a foam buffing pad. And that just doesn't happen. What happens is the foam, because it's not really aggressive, it just kind of glides over the contaminants. It doesn't take them off. And so you really need to use a mechanical means, and that could be detailing clay or a foam or a clay Mitt like I'm using here, and get those contaminants off. Now, the reason you want to get the contaminants off is obviously because you don't want contamination on the, gosh, I can feel that too. Because you don't want contamination on the surface, but here's why. Gloss comes from a smooth surface. And anytime you have contamination on the surface, that creates texture. Texture diminishes gloss. So if the goal is to create the most glossy looking paint possible, and in this case, I want a glossy looking glass, you have to use a mechanical means to get those contaminants off. Buffing with a foam pad simply isn't gonna work. Buffing with the rotary buffer and a wool pad probably would work, but I'm not gonna be using a wool pad and a rotary on this classic two-door European job. So there's another reason you want to clay. Most waxes or paint sealants or ceramic coatings are formulated to stick to urethane paint. If you've got a layer of contamination there, the product that you want to use to protect the paint can't actually get to the paint because the contamination's in the way. So in my life, I always have people ask me, how long does that wax last? Or how long will that ceramic coating last? And the technically correct answer is, how long anything will last depends on how the paint is prepared to accept it. And if there's contamination in the way, the product that you're going to put on to protect the paint can't actually get to the paint to bond to it, so it can't last as long as it was formulated to last. Makes sense? See how we go down that rabbit hole, go down real deep and answer that question. So the reason you want to clay paint is to remove the contamination, to restore a smooth surface, that maximizes gloss, and to give the best chance for your protection product to actually get to the paint, to stick to it. There's one more reason too. If you were to not clay and there was contamination on here, maybe overspray paint, industrial fallout, tree sap mist, and if you were to loosen it by buffing, then you'd be grinding it into the paint as you're buffing the paint. So you really want to get any contamination off the paint, the plastic, the glass, the chrome, any smooth surface before you start doing any kind of paint correction work. Okay, so I'm going to keep moving around the car with my Mitt, my clay lube, and just keep on claying this thing, because this thing is, I know it looks good, but it is contaminated, especially these headlight protectors up here. Okay, so now that she's mechanically decontaminated, let me just show you what I see, how I'm going to address this car. Okay, here's a swirl finder light, and here's the level of swirls in this car. So any of you seasoned or professional detailers, you can look at this and you can tell this isn't too bad. Okay, but again, this is what you would call a show car. If you went to a car show, you would see a car like this on display, thus the term show car. So a show car should have a flawless finish. Let me turn this off. Okay, besides doing the paint polishing to pull the swirls out, and notice how these overhead lights here, see, they don't show anything, okay? So one of the things we're doing here down at the Auto 4 Garage is we're swapping those out for some things, some lights that show everything. But here's something else I noticed was when you get down to here, there's actually some staining into the weave of this canvas top. And that's because whoever detailed this before me, they didn't lift this up and then put some tape around this and tape this whole bottom border off. So as they're machine polishing and they get any splatter slinging around, it doesn't get onto the weave of this and get trapped inside there. So I'm gonna go ahead and tape this off, and I'll make a little video show you how I do that. Sometimes on cars like this, you could take the top down. This is a car that I'm really not gonna do a lot of touching to it. It's ready to go back to the owner. It's been restored. It's had some work done to it, not been restored. It was restored a number of years ago, but I am gonna freshen this top up. I'm gonna go freshen this top up with some RaggTopp. I'm gonna clean it and put some RaggTopp on there, make it a little crisper looking. So normally, when you want to put a protectant onto a top, you want to carefully wash the top, get it completely dry, then apply the protectant. A lot of times I don't wash classic and exotic cars that have been restored because I don't want to get running water into places that could form rust, because one of the most expensive parts about restoring a car is removing rusted body panels. So in this case, I'm just gonna vacuum it, but normally I would use, for a canvas top, I'd use the RaggTopp cleaner. They have a special brush that is, it has 2-inch long bristles that are flagged. That means the tips have been split, they're split open. And what that does is it gently gets into the weave to loosen the dirt so you can flush it off when you wash it. And I've got a video like that already up on the AutoForge YouTube channel. Then after it completely dries, then I apply the RaggTopp aerosol protectant. The aerosol makes it really nice because it's a lot easier to spray it onto the top. But since I'm not going to wash this, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to thoroughly vacuum it, and then we'll come back and we'll put the protection on. I'm going to do that before I buff out the car, because what's going to happen is I'm going to get some overspray onto the glass to trim the paint, and I can wipe that off and then buff out the car. If I buff out the car first and get the overspray on, I could wipe it off, but then you always risk marring the paint. So it's better to try to work smarter instead of harder. Do the top first and then buff out the paint. So let me get this thing vacuumed real quick. I'm not gonna make you watch me vacuum the whole top, but here's one thing I can tell you that you probably can't see. Just by vacuuming this, I can see it get darker, and what that means is just pulling the dust out of the weave. So washing is the best option when you can't wash. The next best option though is to carefully vacuum. Try to pull all that loose dirt and dust out of the weave, because if you don't, when you put the protectant on, you're gonna seal it into the weave. So try to get it as clean as you can first, then put the RaggTopp protectant on. Now that I've vacuumed this thing and got all the dirt and the dust out of the weave, you know, the weave kind of looks like that. Now I'm ready to put the RaggTopp protectant on. Now, one of the things that makes the RaggTopp product unique is it contains an ingredient called CBEAST. And my good friends at RaggTopp told me it's the most expensive UV protectant you can buy that works to protect your top from the harmful UV rays which would fade this top. Now, you always want to shake this up before you use it, and you can just put this on like you're using a can of spray paint, a rattle can. There's also a cool little tool here called the Can Gun 1, and it just kind of slips on like that, and you just want to make sure you got the nozzle pointed out, and then you can kind of use this like a painter would use a paint gun. And it just makes it easier because I've done a lot of rattle can work in my life, and sometimes your finger can get tired of pushing that nozzle down. Now here's the tip when you're doing this. Notice as I'm applying this, I'm spraying from the outside of the top in. And when any overspray lands, it lands on the top. If I were to spray from here outward, a lot of the overspray would land on the flexible window of the paint. Ain't gonna hurt nothing, but it's just wasting product. So I always want to spray into the top, and that way the overspray lands on the top. Now, back in, I think it was 2013, I actually wrote an article on how to do this procedure, and as I was doing this, I noticed as I applied a heavy or a wet application of the RaggTopp Protectant that it looks almost like morning dew. Okay, so it's settling onto the fabric, and you can see it's kind of a whitish color. It just looks like morning dew on a surface. And the instructions say to, after you spray this, to let this fully dry. And you want to let it completely dry before you put the car back into service. In other words, put it in a situation where it might get wet if it's, for example, raining outside. But in my brain, here's what I thought. I don't really want this product with this CBEAST sitting on the surface. So I put some nitrile gloves on, and then I did this, I worked it in. I worked it into the weave. That's where I want it. And I sent this to the owner of RaggTopp, this technique, and he said he loved it. He said, I love that idea. So they officially endorsed this technique for applying their product to your top, and that is to clean the top first, let it fully dry, and then apply the RaggTopp Protectant, and then work it into the top. And then from there, let it dry. And usually what I'll do is, I will set up a fan just to kind of blow some air in here when I leave tonight. So you create an air curtain, have moving air in here. And one of the things I can tell already is how the RaggTopp product has just darkened this top. It gives it a rich look to it. Okay, it's crisp now. So I'm not sure how old this is, but it looks brand new. Anyway, so I'm going to continue doing this around the car, and a couple other things to just point out. Anywhere you see stitching, you just want to make sure you really get the stitching well. That's the weakest link. If you ever look at an older top, usually it's the stitching that comes undone first, not the top actually degrading. It's the stitching that comes undone first. So give that some extra attention as you're putting this on. And like I say, just work around the top, always be spraying into it. And that's how you take and protect your top. And if you're driving a car that's a daily driver, you should be cleaning and protecting your top at least once a year. If it's a garage queen, you know, then just use common sense. But I'll tell you, in my life as a detailer, here's what I've seen. Most of the people that own convertibles, when I ask them how often they clean and protect their top, they usually look at me like I'm from Mars, which tells me that they've probably never done it before. So once a year if it's a daily driver, and then just once in a while, use common sense if you got a garage queen like this. Okay, so I'm getting ready to do a test spot. I want to dial in a process that removes the swirls and scratches to my expectations using the least aggressive process to get the job done. Before I do that, I've already protected this top. What I want to do now is I want to put some tape around the edges of this, so while I'm buffing it, if I throw any splatter, it won't get into the weave, or I got to try to get it out with a toothbrush or something, because it just tends to fray the fibers. To do that, I've got some fat masking tape. This is kind of tricky, but you want to just take and, whoops, you just kind of want to, let's go from this direction. You just want to get this slit underneath there, like that, and then pull it up and attach it to the top as good as you can. And when I first inspected this car, one of the things I noticed was whoever at some point detailed this or worked on this before me, they didn't do this. And all along this bottom edge here, there's old compound and polish residue. And there, just pull that up like that. And you know, it just stains it, and it's really hard to clean it out of there without damaging it. It's also time consuming, you know. A lot of times when I'm teaching people how to detail cars, my own personal style is it takes a long time to do this type of work. And I don't mind doing it, but I don't want it to take any longer than it has to. So I use the term, I want to get in and get out. And that means I want to get in, get the job, do all the work, and then, you know, go home and be with my beautiful wife. Okay, just like that. And then after you get that, then go ahead and place some more tape on here, because no matter how careful you are, when you have a spinning pad here, it's going to start throwing some splatter up here. And it's just faster to tape it off than it is to come back and try to detail it later on. So just cover that up. But I want to get in and get out. And anyway, this is just something that saves you time, because at the end of the day, after I spend a lot of time working on this car, I'm going to be tired. and I don't want to come back and try to detail it, get wax out of the cracks with a toothbrush. So that's what I mean by get in and get out. And on a lot of cars, you know, you could just put the top down, but this particular car here, I don't, the owner asked me to leave the top up, so I am leaving it up and just abiding kind of by their wishes. Okay, so that's how you do that. And just cover this up. And sometimes, you know, after you've applied a protectant like the RaggTopp, tape won't want to stick to anything. And you can, there's another technique I teach in all my classes, because I always bring in a convertible with a cloth top and a convertible with a vinyl top to teach how to clean and protect both types of tops. And my next class is coming up in May if you want to get in on that. Teach these things year round here in Florida. But you can do what I call put the tape under tension. So if you, even if you can't get the tape to stick to, say, the cloth, you can clean a part of the glass and get the tape to stick to that, and then run the tape around and put it under tension. And once you get under tension, it'll stay in place. That's what I mean by put under tension. Okay, so this is my handy dandy SCANGRIP soil finder light. And in order for you to see the difference here, I'm going to have to walk over there and take the camera off the tripod. But I'm just gonna go ahead and do this live in front of you. So I'm gonna take and put a tape line down right here. And this thing is fairly uniformly very swirled and scratched up. So dirty towel, my clean bucket for dirty towels. So the different, you're gonna see the before and after difference. The level of swirls and scratches is the same here as it is here, as it is here, as it is around the entire car. So it'll be a good demonstration of what a test spot looks like. Now, to do a test spot, if you look over here, I've got 4 different pads, okay? And this is kind of, the color coding is never gonna be universal. So you gotta keep in mind that you need to learn the color coding for the brand of pads that you're using. But this black, this is finishing. This white is a all-in-one or a polishing pad. This orange is actually a polishing pad, and this yellow is a cutting pad. And you can kind of tell the difference by feeling it with your hand. I feel a sharpness here. That's a cutting pad. It's also stiffer. And that's kind of true of all pads. You can feel a sharpness, and you can compress them. This finishing pad is very soft, and I feel no sharpness at all. So that's how you can kind of tell what pads are. Now, to do the test spot, I'm gonna just do this with, this is the Cordless CBEAST, the Flex CBEAST, I think they call this the XCE. I always just give it the nickname CBEAST, which is Cordless Beast. It's the cordless version of the original, which is the Beast. And I've been testing out a new compound and a new polish. So to do the test, but I just want to start with a polish and a polishing pad. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a standard textbook example of 8 section passes, and then we'll get the camera come over here and check out the before and after results. The first thing I do is I just want to spread my product out. Now I've got a uniform layer of abrasive technology right there. My pad is primed. I'm going to bring this up. It is on the 6th setting, and we got 3 bars. I'm going to push down a little bit here, and just start making some slow overlapping passes. 1. I always teach people to count their section passes out loud. 2, and that way you don't forget where you're at. 3, and what you want to do is you want to dial in a process that works to your expectations. 4, and then all you got to do is duplicate that process over the rest of the car. That was 5. This was 6. That was 7. And there's 8. I'm going to bring my pressure up just a little bit here, make a couple little finishing passes, just like that. So technically that's roughly 9 section passes. And if this removed the defects to my satisfaction, then all I got to do is repeat this to the rest of the car. If it doesn't, then what I can do is I can either test a more aggressive product or a more aggressive pad. but I really want to try to knock this out in one step. So I'm really hoping this polish will work good enough to pull the defects out to my expectations, and then I can start buffing out the rest of the car. And this wipes off easy. The problem whenever you do this stuff is you get residue off the tape and it gets into where you're wiping, and then you just got to get that sticky stuff off. So let me walk over there and grab the camera and I'll show you the before and after difference. Okay, so I've got my, it's actually my iPhone out of my camera jig there. Just walk over here and check out the before and after difference. Okay, so here's before, here's after. This is what we're looking for. Okay, and this is, you know, this is how you'd want the paint to look on your car or this Ferrari or anything you're trying to polish out and make look perfect. So this tells me that the paint is not hard, it's not too soft. And also something else, let me just kind of point this out. I didn't know if this was a base coat clear coat until I did this test, but as you can see, there's no red paint coming off. So this is in fact a base coat clear coat finish. So in my test spot here, I used, this is the CBEAST, the Cordless Beast, but I'm gonna switch over to the Supa Beast. This would work obviously, and I like the freedom of not having a cord, but when I get the Supa Beast, it's a plug-in, it's the plug-in version of this. It has a little higher OPM, a little higher RPM, so I can just go a lot faster. And then just real quickly, you can see how I've taped off the lower portions of the convertible top. Look how crisp this looks now after the RaggTopp. And then I've also done the same thing up here because I'm gonna have to get a 1-inch pad on the Flex Pixie and come in here and buff this out. By the way, I'm gonna be using the Pixie with the new 6mm drive unit. The Pixie comes with a, here I got them right over here. The Pixie, when you buy it new, it comes with rotary, it comes with a 3 and a 12. And I had Flex make this 6mm version because I do a lot of custom dry sanding and wet sanding by machine. And here is the production units. They're actually engraved. I think I got 5 of these. Here's 4 of them. But that's for the Pixie. But I'm gonna go ahead and put a 1-inch backing plate on this 6mm, and then I can get in there and get that little thin panel up there by the, on top of the windshield there. Anyway, now that I've done my test spot, I'm gonna switch over to the Supa Beast, the Flex Supa Beast, and I'm gonna get busy and get this thing knocked out. Okay, so I have finished all the polishing work. So the paint correction step is over. For 95% of the paint, I just used this new polish I'm testing out, foam polishing pad, and the Flex Supa Beast. A couple places I ran into some deeper scratches, and I went ahead and used this new compound I've been testing out. I'm happy to report long buffing time, what they call open time, 0 dusting, easy wipe off. But now it's time to seal the paint, because neither of these two products have any kind of protection in them. They're called a dedicated polish or a dedicated compound. They're dedicated because all they do is one thing. They remove defects, create gloss, you know, so they don't really add any protection. So this is the new McKee's 37 Graphene Deep Gloss Ceramic Sealant. And you can hand apply this or machine apply this, but I'm gonna go ahead and machine apply this. Now, previously I kind of talked about the different types of pads there are in the market. There's cutting, I got 2 polishing pads and a finishing pad here. And usually when it comes time, you've done all the paint correction work and you want to apply either a liquid or a paste, a wax or a sealant, you want to get down to the very soft black foam finishing pad here. So I've already got one here on the CBEAST, and so I'm going to go ahead and put this on. And one of the things I just wanted to share, there's a lot of difference in the way you apply, machine apply a wax or a sealant than there is when you're compounding and polishing. So a lot of times when you're machine polishing and compounding, you know, you're working a small section at a time, and you know, you're making a certain amount of section passes depending on what you dialed in when you did your test spot. When all the defects are done and you're done with that, then all you need to do is spread out a nice thin uniform layer of product, so you don't have to go back and forth and crosswise. Just 2 or 3 passes over each square inch, and then follow the directions. If it says let it dry, let it dry. If it says wipe it off right away, wipe it off right away. So the other thing I just want to share is, you saw how I kind of smushed the product down. So what I see a lot of people do is they run their polisher and they just run the edge into it. Don't be that guy. When you come up to the little pile that you deposited on the paint, tilt it, keep the back edge still in contact with the paint, but grab it underneath the pad and then spread it out so it looked like this. And then just spread it out. Put down a nice thin, even layer. And this is where these cordless tools really shine. Just because you don't gotta mess with any kind of a cord. Again, so come up against the pile, just grab it like that, spread it around, move on to the next little pile. Grab it, spread it, grab it, spread it. I did machine polish both the plastic headlight lenses here. Got all the swirls and scratches out, so I am gonna also seal these up too with this new graphene sealant. Anyway, I'm gonna keep going around the car, get it completely covered. I'll come back and wipe it off, and then I'm gonna do a walk around video and show you how nice this Ferrari came out. Stay tuned. I just finished completely machine applying the McKee's graphene deep gloss ceramic sealant to the entire car, and the directions say allow it to dry for 10 to 15 minutes or till it dries to a haze. But anyway, you can see how well machine application does to just lay down a thin uniform layer, and that saves you product. It also makes wipe off easier. It's kind of hard to see, but I also machine wax these headlight lenses. I did the paint, I used the compound and the polish on to get some of them swirls and scratches out of them. So now I'm just gonna go ahead and get some clean microfiber towels and go ahead and wipe this off, and when I come back and do the walk around video to show the end result, I'll tell you what I thought about the wipe off, and then I'm gonna go over everything it took to do this car. So if you have something like this in your garage or any car and you'd like to duplicate this process, you'll know what it takes. So give me a second to wipe the wax off, and then I'll do a walk around video and show you everything I used. Okay, it's been actually about 25 minutes or so. It took me a while to kind of get everything situated to show you what I used. So anyway, this is the first time I've used this product, and I'm telling you, look how easy this wipes off. It's really leaving a slippery finish too. And at this stage of the game, you want to really make sure your microfiber towels are clean and uncontaminated. Like I always tell people, it takes hours to buff out a car, and it only takes seconds to put a scratch in because your towels are contaminated. Anyway, I'm going to finish this, and then I'm going to grab that camera, and I'm going to come back and do a little walk around video, show you how beautiful this paint came out, and then I'll show you everything I used to get this car from neglected to respected. Here is the walk around video. So when this car got here under these lights, you know, it looked good. You throw a swirl finder light on it, you could really see all the swirls and scratches. I did the baggy test, felt pretty gritty. The paint did, the glass did. These really cool headlight lenses were probably the grittiest feeling. So mechanically decontaminated it. The top, you know, to most people look good. To me, it looked like it really needed the RaggTopp treatment. Now it's crisp. It has a richer, darker look to it. Polished all the glass, kind of hand polished just lightly the back flexible window. Usually I machine polish these. This one isn't too bad. I didn't want to put any pressure on it and possibly just stretch it or warp it. But look at the insane gloss. And this isn't a coating. This is just a graphene sealant. Look at that gloss. Really came out nice. Okay, so I always like to show everybody what I use, because you know, some people that are new to detailing, they may not know what it takes to get a car to look like this. So I didn't wash the car, but I did use the coating prep spray to do a waterless prep wash. So there's two kinds of washing in this world. There's prep wash and maintenance wash. So when you get a car ready to detail, that's called a prep wash. Now that this car is completely detailed, if someone were to wash it, that would be called a maintenance wash. So I use this to do my prep wash and lots of towels. Then I use the clay mitt to mechanically decontaminate it using the universal clay lube. Normally with a convertible, if it's a modern car, I would wash it and I would use the RaggTopp cleaner with this RaggTopp brush. These bristles are specifically made to be 2 inches long. The tips are flagged, so it's very gentle and they're very flexible, see that? So it doesn't tear up the top. So it's important to use the right brush when cleaning. But in this case, I just vacuumed it. You know, this is a restored car. It wasn't like super dirty, but you could actually see when I run the vacuum over it, the dust, you know, it darkened up because I pulled the dust out, which made it look kind of lighter. Then I applied RaggTopp. I pretty much used this whole can on there. And after I applied it, showing the technique that I used to put the RaggTopp fabric protectant on, then I worked it in with nitrile gloves. Whenever you're doing this kind of work, you really need good lights. The leader in the industry is SCANGRIP, and we carry all these at autoforge.net. To do the paint correction work, I did my test spot with the Cordless CBEAST, okay? The CBEAST, the Cordless Beast. But when I actually went to buff out the car, I wanted to go faster. And so I used the Supa Beast. This is the modern version of the original Beast. You can tell the original Beast because it has the aluminum head. This still has an aluminum head, but it's covered up by this shroud. This doesn't quite have the power of the original Beast, but it's smoother, cooler, lighter, and quieter. So smoother, cooler, lighter, quieter. It has 4 unique improvements over the original Beast, and because the paint I found on this would be kind of in the medium range, I didn't really need the power of the Beast, so I like the features, the smoothness and the quietness of this tool here. Then let's count how many pads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 foam polishing pads. No red paint. That's a good sign. So no accidents on any of the edges buffing this thing out. I did hand polish the gills. Okay, so just to keep it simple, I just got in there and did a little hand polishing of the gills. I used the Flex Pixie, and actually I used in rotary mode. I was going to use the 6mm drive unit, but that thin little strip of paint right up there around the windshield frame, just the orbital action just wasn't going to work very good, so I just put that on there. And the reason this is black is because, you know, you can't help but grab the rubber trim that goes around that window, and it gets on the pad, but it doesn't really hurt nothing, but that's what that blackness is. I've been testing out a new compound and a new polish. They worked perfect, long open time, no micro marring, and easy wipe off. And I used the polish with the white pads, and then for some of the deeper scratches, I used this foam cutting pad with the compound. Then to seal the paint, I used this graphene deep gloss ceramic sealant from McKee's 37 and a foam finishing pad on the CBEAST, and then lots of towels. When I started out, my clean bucket for dirty towels was not only clean, but it was empty, and I counted 16 towels. So I always like to point that out because I also know that a lot of people don't use enough towels to do the job correctly, and you have to make sure that the towels are clean and uncontaminated. So always inspect with your sense of touch and your visual inspection, and make sure your towels are clean and uncontaminated before you start wiping paint. It takes hours to buff out a car. It takes seconds to put a scratch in if you got even one contaminant in your towel. Anyway, 1967 Ferrari GT. Let me try that again. I'm sorry, I'm tired. I've been here for about 9 hours so far. 1967 Ferrari 275 GTB 4 NART Spider. Detailed down here by yours truly at the autoforge.net garage. And you can get all the products you saw me use today up at autoforge.net. And don't remember, if you want to learn how to do this, me and Nick Rudder, we teach the most hands-on detailing classes on planet Earth, and we always bring in cool stuff like this for you to train on, okay? There's no demo hoods, no rental cars. We bring in the coolest cars for you to train on. We have a 3-day class coming up in May, but we teach the same 3-day class 3 times a year. It's in February, May, and September. So check your schedule, get signed up. You can get more information on autoforge.net, and I hope to see you at a future detailing class.